Good evening and welcome to NTV's Grow. I'm Steve White. This is a program where we take a look at the latest in agriculture. Tonight we will sit down with officials from the University of Nebraska and find out why agriculture leads the way of their recent expansion plans. And we will hear from Senator Mike Johanns, who has concerns about the effect of possible budget cuts and what that means for our food supply. And later in the show, take a look at technology on the farm. But we begin with a look at agricultural headlines, and that includes a look at a Lincoln Walmart store where animal activists are raising concerns. The group Mercy for Animals is calling on Walmart to require pork suppliers to phase out the practice of confining pigs in crates, something other grocery chains and fast food restaurants have recently done. That group used hidden cameras at Walmart pork suppliers, which found pigs being kept in gestation crates. Mercy for Animals calls it blatant animal abuse. The debate over animal welfare could take center stage at your county or state fair. Just last year, PETA engaged in a lawsuit with the Kansas State Fair. This week, fair managers from across the country were in Grand Island. We caught up with them to find out more. Three things bring people to a fair.
Food, they're interested in rides, they're interested in animals.
But deep-fried goodness on a stick is not number one.
Urban folks have seen more of zoo animals because there's a zoo in their community than they have of farm animals. And the exit polling we're doing now, animals is at the top of the list.
It's something the Nebraska State Fair discovered when placing barns up front. Later joking, they had discovered a new attraction.
It's like a duh, you know, we're waking up and saying, we've got a product here that people like.
While people like seeing cattle, sheep, and swine, fewer fairgoers understand how they're raised, even in top livestock states.
We're undergoing a lot of the changes that we always consider being somewhere else.
Last year, the Kansas State Fair won a lawsuit limiting PETA's presence. PETA said it was showing the ugly truth about how meat was made. But a federal judge said the fair had the right to restrict access to the booth. Fair managers say urban audiences may pose a challenge, but also an opportunity.
And we want to be that leading edge of communicating agriculture to an urban environment.
When it comes to animal welfare groups, cattlemen say, follow the money.
And they're money machines for the people that run those organizations, and they really do very little from the standpoint of improving the environment for animal agriculture.
The Humane Society of the United States is often the villain for ag groups, but HSUS claims most Nebraskans are on its side when it comes to animal welfare issues. Regardless, those in the business of raising animals say fairs are a great place to show what they do is a way of life.
It's still us that are the caretakers and the raisers of livestock that do the best job of maintaining a good environment for our livestock.
Government-wide spending cuts have agencies looking for ways to save money. That could include cuts for those who inspect our meat. USDA meat inspectors testified before a House committee this week on part of their plan to reduce spending by more than $50 million.
USDA and FSIS have taken extraordinary measures to reduce expenditures, including big cuts in conference and travel spending. While these measures have produced noteworthy results, they simply are not enough to meet the sequester requirement.
By law, officials must still do food inspections, but with a reduction in staff, it could lead to food shortages and economic problems.
It potentially will disrupt the nation's food supply. I can't tell you to what extent, but I think there could certainly be shortages. We differ from FDA in terms of our statutory obligations for inspection. We are required to be in every slaughter and processing facility every single day, and for establishments that slaughter livestock and poultry, we have to be there for the entire duration of operations. So this is an enormous economic impact if we have to furlough our entire workforce.
Those furloughs are estimated to start taking place sometime mid-summer. The cutbacks, they're part of that sequester that started taking effect March 1st. Some believe those cutbacks could have a dramatic effect on meatpacking plants in communities like Grand Island and Lexington. That includes Senator Mike Johanns. He is former Secretary of Agriculture and now as senator has written to the current USDA boss saying he does not understand the logic on these cuts. Here's more.
USDA has had more than a year and a half to prepare for these spending reductions. In anticipation of this stopgap funding measure and in the wake of the sequester, a number of government agencies have asked Congress for some latitude in how the spending reductions are made. The Department of Agriculture has asked Congress for at least $100 million in such funding flexibility to round up wild horses, among other requests. But unfortunately, Secretary Vilsack failed to request authority for flexibility to avoid furloughs of meat inspectors. So earlier this week, I sent a letter to Secretary Vilsack, a letter asking why the department had neglected to make this a priority, especially over corralling wild horses. While I wait his response, I've co-sponsored an amendment to provide the added flexibility to the administration to ensure essential government services such as meat inspection continue while responsible spending reductions are maintained. I think it's important to remember these cuts amount to a 3% reduction in federal spending, which has grown by 19% in the last 4 years. Essential services do not need to be the first items on the chopping block.
Those sequester cuts could also mean fewer egg statistic reports coming out this year. The National Agricultural Statistics Service says it will suspend several reports due to the cuts, including the July tally of cattle and meat production. The agency posted a notice on its website Tuesday listing the reports to be cut. It says the decision was not made lightly, but it was necessary given the agency's funding. Congress continues to battle over the budget. One plan came forward in the House of Representatives this week and already faces opposition from a major farm organization. The National Farmers Union released a statement this week in opposition to the so-called Ryan budget. They say the Republican leadership of the House, along with Paul Ryan, have put forward what they think is an unrealistic and ill-advised budget. The 2014 budget would cut $31 billion from farm programs on top of the reductions from the Farm Bill extension and the sequester. President of the National Farmers Union, Roger Johnson, said in his own words, quote, "We are certainly willing to do our fair share for direct reduction, but these projected cuts to farm programs are many times larger than proportionate and will likely make it impossible to pass a 5-year farm bill," end quotes. This is a busy time of year, calving season on many area farms, including this one that I'm on here in Cairo. NTV's Marylyn Barnett, our Grow co-host, has more on understanding what this important season is all about.
John Caldwell joining us here from Common Ground. Calving season is a time, and a lot of people might not think about this, but it is such a busy time.
But it's the most rewarding time.
It's right?
Yes. We bred these cows last year in May or June. For most people, we turn bulls out, and so we wait all this time now, and now we're seeing the fruits of that labor.
Not only are you juggling probably your kids, all their extra activities, like I can't believe my parents handled everything that I did, like basketball season, whatever, and then plus going through calving season, because you don't just, okay, there's a newborn calf and just let it be. You guys really pay attention to these babies and really take it to heart, each one of them, right?
We do, which, you know, every single calf, first of all, it's a living, breathing thing, and you don't want to see any living, breathing thing suffer in any way. So if that mama cow is having trouble, you have to be there when she's having trouble to help her have that calf okay, and you know, get that calf going, make sure it gets up, make sure it nurses, make sure it gets its colostrum. But we also identify every calf with an ear tag to match its mom, so that when we go to pasture, for instance, we have our pairs matched up correctly. And we also, on our farm, and not everyone does this, but we weigh every calf when it's born as well. We sell some bulls, and then, you know, we buy a lot of seed stock bulls, and we want to know how those bulls are performing, if they could be used for first calf heifers, for instance, or if their offspring could. And then later on, we'll weigh those calves again when we wean. And we'll get yearling weights on the ones that we retain in the herd as bulls to sell or as heifers to put back.
And you take care of these calves so much too. Like for instance, my father-in-law one time, the calf, its feet weren't straightening out, so they would come up with splints, and you know, farmers and ranchers, you guys do that kind of stuff. You come up with solutions.
You
right?
do. You splint a leg if it isn't shaped quite right, just like you said. If it's very, very cold outside and we're out of inside stall space during calving, we have made little mittens for their ears. And I say a mitten, it's more of a headband. We cut up the sleeves of old sweatshirts and we tape them around the head of the calf so their ear tips don't get frosted.
Probably your front porch sometimes might have a calf in there every once in a while.
It can.
If you want to know more about this, you have any other questions, especially like if you're at the grocery store, contact Common Ground. They're on Facebook. You can also go to our website, nebraska.tv.
Normally when we talk about university expansion plans, we think of sports, but that's not the case at the University of Nebraska, where agricultural expansion leads the way. We will have more on that coming up next.